Hello, everyone. I'm ready. I'm happy to welcome you on our NanoCon session. And till people join us and gathering, I will tell shortly about our agenda today, and after we will start. First of all, I would like to present our team. We are OrigamiLab, a Swiss-based initiative on digital health and health tech and biotech industry. Today, we want to talk about startupping and how to convert your idea into reality, how to make practical steps, how to develop creative thinking, gather the team, and actually make this important push to convert your just theoretical thinking in practical implementation of your idea. So agenda is the following. Now we will hear a bit about OrigamiLab and the activity. After I will present you our wonderful guest speaker, Natasha, and she will talk about startupping. And after we will have also QA session where you can ask all the questions that you are interested in. So just stay attentive and enjoy the presentation. Now, I would like to present my colleague Victor, co-founder of OrigamiLab. He will tell more about the initiative and the activity. Victor, floor is yours now.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Sorry, I'm always struggling with the GoToWebinar system for some reason. I hope you can see me and hear me. Hello, everyone, to today's NanoCon event. It's number 6 today. It is organized by the University of Applied Sciences in Switzerland and Ilion digital company here in Switzerland. We are an ecosystem and building an ecosystem for the promotion and advocacy of open source in scientific research and the healthcare industry. We believe there is a little bit to do, and we can help with aggregating a community around this topic of young and open-minded people, but also industry veterans, use established technologies and new methodologies of working together or creating things. For that, we have launched OrigamiLab. We're working on this initiative since 1 year. It is mainly there to bring people together from different backgrounds, bring startups together, non-profit organizations, and all type of different initiatives that deal with the same subject and are dedicated to open knowledge, open source, sharing with each other, having a good time, and discovering new ways or new opportunities and just making things better, smoother, or faster. We believe in open source and open knowledge because we think it is accelerating also the progress of humanity overall. It is allowing us to share with each other things that we can use in our own initiatives, in our own projects, no matter how big those are. And we want to encourage also established industry players like the big pharma companies, the big tech companies, to embrace this culture and philosophy. It benefits them. It improves the reputation of their own brand and company, and it helps society in general if things are not locked behind closed doors and not necessary. A competitive mindset is prevalent in every scenario of collaboration. So happy to welcome you here. This is so much about OrigamiLab. If you want to find out more or get involved with us, or just share your feedback, reach out to us. We We will share the contact details at the end of the session. And yeah, that's it from our side. Very much looking forward to Natasha's speech today about starting things up. We have been through similar challenges, and yeah, very curious to hear Natasha's perspective from her experience. Welcome to the event.
Thank you so much, Victor, for introduction. And now I would like to introduce you Natasha. She is PhD researcher in chemical informatics and digital health. Also, she is co-founder of Visibility STEM Africa initiative, and she is a wonderful person in terms of all the qualities. And now she will tell you more about startupping and ideas implementation. So, Natasha, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for the lovely introduction, and thank you, Victor, as well, both of you for this opportunity. And I'm so excited to present today. Hopefully you see my screen and things are working. Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining and being here. So you want to start something. Today we will be discussing how to convert your ideas into reality. Before we get started, I wanted to better understand at what stage you are all in your ideation journey. So you can see that Natalia has shared a poll, and we want to better understand at what stage you are. So if you can start responding to the poll, you should see a polls tab that you can respond to. Yeah, and it would be great to see your responses. Oh, I'm loving the responses coming in. Thanks so much for engaging. We have like a mixed bag of responses, and I really love this and how diverse the audience is. So some people have an idea and don't know what to do with it. Others have an idea and are starting to develop it. Some don't have any ideas at the moment, and that's totally fine as well. And we'll discuss that as well. So exciting. Thanks so much for engaging and contributing to the poll. This is awesome. Cool. I will share my screen again so you can see everything. Oops, I may have stopped sharing. I'm still sharing. Okay, cool. Sorry, I'm also new to the GoToMeeting platform. So if you see me messing around, you know why. So awesome. So we got a better idea of our audience in terms of where you are with your ideas. And it's very exciting. And I just want to share my experience with all of you and share some tips, and hopefully you'll find it useful. And while I'm presenting, if you all want to connect in the chat, feel free to do so. Share your name and also your social media. That would be great. So on to, I guess, introducing myself, which would be valuable. I'm Natasha, a PhD student at the University of Sydney, Australia, in biomedical informatics and digital health. Now, I had two ideas that I have developed, and I'm still working towards making them a reality. The first is a pregnancy app. As part of my PhD, I'm developing a pregnancy app which aims to help mothers monitor their health. The second is Visibility STEM Africa, which we co-founded with the support of the University of Luxembourg Incubator. We aim to empower Africans to pursue and flourish in STEM fields by giving them better visibility and creating opportunities that can support their career journeys. So I have experience in both research translation as well as social entrepreneurship. During the talk, I will share tips that are based on those two experiences of developing my ideas into something more tangible. So let's get started on some tips. Tip 1, keep it real. Believing and being passionate about your idea helps. Where that passion comes from is dependent on the individual. But do not pursue something just because others are doing it, as it requires hard work. And if you do not have a particular passion, that's also okay. You can develop that by exposing yourself to different opportunities. You may also want to pursue an idea because you're just good at it or have the skills to do it. In my case, for both Visibility STEM Africa and the pregnancy app, they align with my passions. I grew up in Botswana and recognized the lack of opportunities in STEM fields. This made me passionate about promoting the visibility of underrepresented groups And that representation matters, especially when aiming to inspire younger generations. I'm also passionate about promoting and contributing to more female reproductive health research, and definitely my friends and students can attest to that. Now, it is important and great to be passionate, but when developing an idea, perseverance and determination are key. The internal motivation helps you become more resilient to the challenges, especially during the initial stages of ideation. I mean, I'm doing all of this during a PhD. I would not have done it otherwise because it is very time consuming, stressful. So it's really important to have that internal motivation. Yeah, and feel free to share in the chat what motivates you, especially with the work that you're doing. Would love to hear more about that. So on to the second tip, make and take opportunities. For the pregnancy app, I took an opportunity that presented itself. Let me tell you a little bit about that journey. I had completed an honors in cellular immunology and had a chat about my desires to pursue something more translational with direct human impact. The informal chat led to this PhD opportunity, and I said yes. It was scary. I had to transition to a different field, but I was even more excited about that. You can see the co-founders involved in the project in a Zoom meeting, and I have the opportunity to work with such amazing researchers and entrepreneurs. Professor Corinne Caillot is an exercise physiologist and has experience in developing health apps. Professor Celine Boehm is the head of School of Physics and is experienced in software development. Dr. Alberto Cron Martins is an astronomer and lecturer in informatics at the University of California and also has experience in software development. So a bit about how the team works, why we work so well. We have a range of skill sets that are quite interdisciplinary. We work well together because we regularly communicate, love innovation, and respect and appreciate each other. Now, for Visibility STEM Africa, we made that opportunity. Natasha Mwanigwa, who is a neurobiology PhD student at the University of Luxembourg, and I co-founded Visibility STEM Africa. How we met and started this initiative is such a fascinating story. I was very new to academic Twitter and was reluctant to engage, and my partner came across a post. He DM'd that to me and said, "This sounds like you." And I was like, what does he mean? It sounds like me. I looked at the post and it was about a person who grew up in Botswana, lived there for 10 years, lived in 5 different countries, was 25 and was completing a PhD. I was so happily shocked and messaged her immediately. I was like, I also grew up in Botswana and lived there for 10 years, lived in 5 different countries. I'm 25 and completing a PhD. We immediately connected and got along so well. You can see the initial conversations in this screenshot here and the other one over here. And Tasha, after we started connecting, Tasha then shared her thoughts about the need for a platform to increase the visibility of Africans in STEM and asked if I was interested. I said yes, because I had always wanted to give back to the community where I grew up. And we created this opportunity. And by the way, we only later realized that we're both called Natasha. Because our names are spelled uniquely, we actually didn't know to start. So why do we work so well together? You can tell that we're very similar, but our skills complement each other very well. I'm great with tech-related work. Tasha's amazing at editing, content curation, and we both enjoy networking. We also have similar values regarding the mission of Visibility STEM Africa and also leadership. We openly communicate when either of us are busy with our PhDs and need support. And I think this really nicely segues into our next topic related to the importance of teams. Now, the reason I'm introducing the importance of teams is because it's beneficial to develop your idea as a team. So tip 3, the team matters. And I cannot emphasize this enough. I will share a few of my experiences about this. Having a co-founder or founders helps. I would not have been able to progress very far without co-founders for the projects. As a co-founder, your leadership defines how team members communicate with one another. I've noticed that fostering open and honest communication creates room for team members to share their experiences more openly, especially when in need of help for a project, or they need to take some time off. Manage your expectations. Just because you are a founder, you cannot expect other team members to work as much as you do. This is especially important when managing a team of volunteers, and it illustrates the importance of clearly outlining your expectations. Leverage your team's skills, perspectives, and experience. For instance, if your social media coordinator is better at social media than you are, that is amazing. Give them the room to take ownership of their work. Letting go is just as important in leadership. Be flexible. Things won't work perfectly immediately. A great example of that was when we were trying to figure out the best way to track the responsibilities of different team members. We wanted team members to log their activities and how they align with their responsibilities, and we still haven't figured out how to do this perfectly. So I thought I would also share our experiences of managing a team of volunteers as part of Visibility STEM Africa, because that may be useful to all of you. You can see this lovely screenshot to the left of our team during our conference last year. Shout out to our amazing team for working together regardless of time zones. The team members are Zooming from South Africa, the UK, the US, Luxembourg, and Australia, which I think is just amazing and shows that dedication. So now on to some suggestions. Organized a shared online workspace. We use Google Workspace, which helps us organize all our files, emails, Google Analytics. Define team responsibilities. We define the job descriptions with team members together to ensure it aligns with their availability and also aspirations. Recipes help outline how a job was previously performed to provide a foundation. Define how you plan to manage your team. We created a team dashboard on Excel, which included our team members' objective key results, or OKRs, instead of performance indicators. OKRs are goal-defining frameworks. We don't want to tell our team members, oh, you need to be doing this then. We want to create room for them to take the lead and define their own goals. This has yet to work and is still in progress. And I think it's mainly because our team just hates Excel. I don't know if other people feel that way, but that's what we noticed. Ensure team members have a shared vision. This is important, and it's something that can be assessed during team recruitment. Team analytics can also be used to remind team members about the vision, which is important for cause-driven initiatives. Allow room for creativity. We do something called a crazy ideas section in each of the team members' worksheets to allow for that. Employ growth hacking techniques, which is an experiment-driven technique, a bit like trial and error to grow your community. And of course, when you start something, it's always trial and error based, because you just want to figure out what works best. We grew our community by being active on every social media channel and by creating a Slack community specifically for Africans in STEM. So now we've talked about teams, you have a team, what are your next steps? And I think now it's time to the really fun bits. So you have an idea, now it's time to develop it with your team. You should consider, how unique is your idea? Is it worth doing, or are you just adding to an already cluttered market? What does my target audience think? This illustration at the bottom, the image, illustrates how bad things can go, and you kind of want to prevent such idea disasters from occurring. I'll discuss steps involved with developing your ideas by going through the following: stakeholder mapping, empathy mapping, journey mapping, storyboarding, a literature search, surveys, interviews, and informal conversations, which finally end with a pitch. For the first few ideas, using sticky notes and markers helps, or using virtual versions of those. I have used both Mural and Miro, and they work quite well. And if you are a UX designer, you would have probably been exposed to some of these methods. I learned these techniques from my brother, Rasha, who's a UX UI designer at Autodesk. And shout out to my brother for teaching me this, and it just illustrates the power of borrowing from different fields, which is quite valuable. So let's start this initial ideation journey. So the first part is stakeholder mapping. It's a method to brainstorm the people that might be affected by your idea. It ensures that no one is left out of the conversation. The diagram on the right can be used as a template, and I will share mapping related to the pregnancy app as an example. So the core user is the pregnant person, the main target end user. The direct stakeholders are those that directly interact with the core user and impact their experience, like family and friends and healthcare professionals. The indirect stakeholders impact the core user's experience indirectly. So think about healthcare policies, regulators, etc. You want to aim to involve as many stakeholders as possible during this ideation process, as many as you can, given the time frame of what you're doing. The next step is empathy mapping, to feel what the other person is feeling in order to mirror their expressions, opinions, and hopes. Often it's easiest to start with the co-user and maybe one direct stakeholder. It is also important to distinguish between user and persona. A persona is a single representation of a cluster of target users who represent similar behaviors, goals, and motivations, whereas a user is a real person who would contribute to data for a persona. And this is an example of an empathy map we completed together for a persona called Laura, a pregnant woman. And yeah, this was part of the pregnancy app development. And you can see all the team's contributions with all the different sticky notes as well. We considered what Laura would say or need to say to others, would think about the situation, would do to get the job done, and would feel about things. So some examples are saying, I need help, thinking, I should contact my doctor about this, feeling overwhelmed and tired, and getting an ultrasound and other pregnancy tests. So now you thought about how your persona feels, what does their journey actually look like? So based on the empathy maps, create a journey map of the current user experience. What user journey do you want to map? For instance, at what stage of the pregnancy journey do you want to map their interactions with family, friends, or are you mapping their health monitoring behavior? And the first ingredient is to consider the steps and phases of that journey. And the second is, what is the user doing, thinking, feeling at each of these stages? So you're really incorporating that empathy mapping. This helps you identify the gaps in their current user experience. You can see an example of the health monitoring journey we mapped initially. And from that journey map, something exciting comes. You can now storyboard. So you consider your persona, then you think about a scenario and you visualize that scenario. And that allows you to predict and explore the user experience. And I will share a brief and simple example of that. So our persona is Refilwe and she's 30 weeks pregnant. We will see a conversation she's having with her friend Asma. Asma asks her how she is feeling. Refilwe responds, I feel overwhelmed and tired because of work and all the appointments. Asma says, sorry to hear that, bestie. What do you think would help? Refilwe expresses, ugh, I just wish there was an easier way to keep track of my appointments. Now, this is the perfect way to set the scene of your problem, because now your problem has defined and now you can enter and include your idea to that problem. So that's kind of setting the scene, setting the problem, and then you add in your idea to solve that problem. You can create, oops, that's the animation related to that. So it's a great point to add your idea to this problem. And then you can create these storyboards from scratch using paper on your iPad or other software like Illustrator, Figma, and Sketch. You can also use open source illustrations like I did this in this example. I used illustrations from both Blush Design app and Canva. And it's just a great example of how you can visualize your problem and then your idea to that problem, solving that problem. So now you've visualized the experiences of your user, but how do you explore these assumptions further? Because thus far, you're just making assumptions about the user. Now it's time to compare those assumptions to the available literature on the topic. Is the gap you identified actually real? Firstly, outline your search terms or search strategy, identify the main concepts, and define related keywords and their synonyms. I always say cinnamon instead of synonyms. I find it such a hard word to say. Anyway, I think I said it correctly. So examples of synonyms are, for instance, baby, fetus, and newborn. And as part of that search strategy, what databases will you search? Searching databases such as PubMed, Web of Science, and Scopus is important to get an overview of the field. But depending on the idea, other databases should be searched. For our pregnancy app competitor analysis, we mainly reviewed Google Play Store and Apple Store. So based on this search, you should identify key papers and stats that help outline the why of your pitch. For Visibility STEM Africa, we want to emphasize the need to inspire younger generations by promoting the visibility of others. The stat we use to support the need is that less than 1% of global research output is from Africa, which illustrates the need for promoting STEM careers. So now, based on the mapping and literature search, it's actually time to ask your users. How exciting! So you can ask your users about their experiences by conducting surveys, interviews, focus groups, and also informal conversations and chats. Involving all stakeholders during the design process to ensure usability is called co-design. So how do you start these conversations? You can recruit your stakeholders by outsourcing services of a recruitment company, or you can recruit on social media by using ads or influencers. You can also recruit in person at key locations or community events. And how did we develop our questions for our users? We developed questions based on our journey mapping and literature search. And these are some examples of questions we developed and decided to explore both in surveys and interviews. Does the pregnant woman feel supported? What healthcare professionals do they visit? Any underlying chronic conditions? Where do pregnant women seek information? Do they currently use pregnancy apps to monitor their health? And when deciding which method to use, the main aim of your research should be considered. Surveys, if you want to get the perspectives of a larger cross-section of your core users. Interviews and focus groups, if you want to delve into topics further and allow for discussion. So let me share another example. Before we launched Visibility STEM Africa, we wanted to better understand and engage with our community. We designed a survey and asked questions like, where do you come from? And where are you based? This gave us a better understanding of how international the community was, an idea of how many community members were based where they are from, which is important to understand. We asked about STEM fields, and this word cloud represents, how diverse the STEM fields are. But engaging with users or communities should be an iterative process, not just one-off. Do not engage with users just to tick a box. Do it for the right and genuine reasons. Co-design is not a step, but it's a process. And it can be tricky, but it's something you should consider. This is an example of another survey we released to our community to better understand how well we were doing. So we asked questions like, what did you gain from being profiled by Visibility STEM Africa? What did you hope to gain from this profile? What else could our platform do for you as an individual? What could it do to the wider African community? Is there anything else that you would like to add to this discussion? So all of these are open-ended questions and allowed even in a survey format for a kind of deeper understanding of how well we are doing. So now we have developed our idea, we've considered the users, and it's time to pitch, which is quite exciting. You get to share your idea. And I want to outline a few things that you should consider. Can you summarize your work in 3 minutes? Do you want to challenge yourself and try an elevator pitch, which is a 30-second memorable description of your idea? Consider why someone should care about your idea. Communicate the main feature or vision. A great example is Snapchat, the photo and video sharing app. It had one of the best pitches. They focused their pitch on the idea of an image disappearing once it was shared to capture more raw snaps or moments. And finally, know your audience. Now, okay, you've considered all of these things, but who do you pitch to? You can pitch to family and friends to get that extra amazing moral support, to colleagues to promote collaboration, especially on grants, funding applications, to investors or incubator accelerator hubs to get support and funding. So I'd like to share some examples to demonstrate what I learned during pitching. And remember, your pitch will improve and evolve over time. It won't be perfect immediately, and it will change depending on who you are presenting to. So knowing your audience is very valuable. So for my PhD project, I have presented to multiple healthcare professionals, and it has been a learning curve, to say the least. I learned to tailor my why and the evidence associated with my why to the type of healthcare professional I was presenting to. I learned to avoid using words like the machine learning system will predict the onset of adverse health outcomes, and instead say the word project instead of predict. I learned to emphasize that the technology we are developing won't replace the care the healthcare professionals are providing, but will support them. And those words are very important, which I learned later on and through experience. And I recently pitched Visibility STEM Africa at the Farad Finance Forum. I do not have a finance background, so it was quite intimidating. I presented virtually at an in-person event in Luxembourg to a bunch of potential investors. We were thankfully connected to Namir, a senior business development manager at FundSquare, who gave us the insight we needed. What do people in finance want to hear? We had to present more about the numbers and illustrate the direct impacts Visibility STEM Africa would have on communities in Luxembourg, since this event was based in Luxembourg. We revised our pitch at least 3 times with Namir. So again, shout out to Namir, really appreciate that help. And this connects really nicely to the second last tip, the power of informal conversations and mentorship. I can't even count how many times I've had conversations about the ideas in 2020 and 2021, and how many times I pitched those ideas for both my PhD project and Visibility STEM Africa. I wanted to share some examples of how informal conversations led to both mentorship and other opportunities for Visibility STEM Africa. We spoke to Pankaj, who has several executive positions as well as roles as COO, GM, and CMO, and is the founder of Practical Speak. His mentorship helped us structure our pitch and vision development to nail our how. Mentorship from Philip Grosser, the COO of Roommate, founder of companies like Stepping Stone and Test My Pitch, helped us develop leadership and team management skills. We also were introduced to strategic planning and the effect of backward goal setting. So the idea of backward goal setting is you define your objective and then work your way backwards to develop a 3-month, 6-month, and 1-year plan. Chatting with Dr. Brighton Samatanga, founder and CEO of Biotech Institute in Zimbabwe and professor in physics at the University of Leipzig, led us to a lot of opportunities. We established a partnership for collaborative projects and provided our first ever service, updating the Institute website and content, which was absolutely amazing. But one of the main and I guess best outcomes out of all these conversations was that there were people that supported and encouraged us. Just hearing that someone thinks what you're doing is valuable and worthwhile makes a huge difference to any imposter syndrome or hesitancy you may be feeling. And that also shows how important it is to surround yourself with people who are supportive and aren't negative immediately about an idea you propose. So shout outs to Pankaj, Philip, and Brighton for really helping us through that difficult initial ideation process. And there are many other memorable conversations. So just remember that informal conversations often lead to opportunities. And do not be afraid to reach out to people on LinkedIn or other social media platforms. I would like to end with this final tip. Failure is okay. We don't hear that enough because people often don't share their failures as openly as we would like. But everyone goes through failures and you learn so much from them, even though it doesn't feel like that at the time, and it can be tough at the time. And that's just, something to consider. And do not let fear of failure or imposter syndrome stop you from developing your ideas. And that is it for today. And I just want to summarize the tips that we covered. So tip 1, keep it real. Tip 2, make and take opportunities. Tip 3, the team matters. Tip 4, idea development. 5, informal convos and mentorship. And 6, failure is okay. And I would like to end by thanking all of you for listening and engaging and being here. And I can see that you're, joining from different time zones, so I really appreciate that. And I'd like to acknowledge the amazing people I get to work with, both as part of my PhD project and also Visibility STEM Africa at the University of Sydney and the University of Luxembourg Incubator. Thank you to both FHNW and OrigamiLab for this opportunity. It was really exciting to just share my experiences in this platform. And please feel free to DM me if you have any questions about this NanoCon or would like to connect. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Natasha, for this wonderful speech. I'm sure that everyone, no matter on what stage the idea is, can bring something with them and implement. Here you can see the contacts of Natasha, also social media of the initiative Visibility STEM Africa. We are really enjoying to work with you, and thank you so much for your efforts. It's really valuable for us, and the presentation is give amazing input to everyone's vision of idea and initiative. Now we will have a Q&A session. You can ask questions in the chat. Also, you can raise your hand and ask questions by voice. So don't hesitate to do it. And I would like to start having some credits. I would like to start and ask first question. Today we talked a lot about how to work with ideas that exist, how to convert it from theory to some practical implementation. But on your experience, how idea arise in your mind? From what point, maybe when you see some problem or when you see some lack or gap in some processes? So where is this point where idea born exactly as for you?
That is such a great question. Thanks for asking it. And I think it varies between individuals. From my experience, it's based on some topic I'm passionate or interested about or have experience in. And based on that given experience, I notice that there's something that's annoying me. So I'll give you an example. I'm in a waiting room waiting for my doctor's appointment. And I'm so annoyed at this clinic because at the doctor, I have to sign in the patient form to get my MRI done. I have to sign in the patient form again to visit the physio. I have to sign in the patient form again to talk to the doctor. It's all in one clinic. So those type of experiences, then a light bulb idea comes to mind. What if all of this was integrated? It would make my life a lot easier. So those type of moments are examples where an idea comes around. Also, often when I've had an idea, it's because I've been talking to someone. So we've been discussing something, and again, who that person is you discuss things with needs to be that type of person who's just open to bouncing ideas. And that conversations I found are helpful, as well as that initial stage that I showed you about using the sticky notes, markers, or virtual sticky notes can be really helpful to map out the different thoughts that you have. And a lot of those thoughts can be of your own experiences, because often what defines, pushing an idea forward is because you are passionate about it and have some sort of attachment to realizing that idea. So from my experiences, those have been the different ways that I guess I've thought about an idea, and definitely conversations. Yeah, hope that made sense.
Oh yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And it's not finished of my questions. I actually have another one. When you gather people around your idea, your maybe co-founder or people who help you with some processes, how you see if they are really engaged, if they're interested? What is the criteria when you decide and select your team for initiative? Because as we see, it's very important to have people who are really engaged and who are really interested in the process, in the implementing of certain plan.
That's such a great question, especially when it comes to, I guess, creating a team. And from what I've heard and read, putting together a team of founders is probably the hardest thing and the hardest process. But I've just been so lucky that I immediately met people, we got along and clicked. And that's just a rarity because you need to be introduced and meet people that you get along with, you share the same values, but have different skill sets. And often we surround ourselves with people with similar skill sets because that's what we're exposed to. So definitely when trying to find other founders or you have an idea, going to networking events, reaching out to different types of people. Sometimes incubator or accelerator programs can connect you with other founders. So you apply and you, I guess, apply with your ideas. They assess your ideas and actually connect you with people. But to be honest, based on my experience, you're going to have to be around and work with this person for a lot of time. So it's important you like the person and you have the same values as that other person. I think that's the main thing. And then if you're going to develop something that's cause driven, like Visibility STEM Africa, you need to actually care. Like we've had conversations with people that just want to work with us. So they say they're doing something in Africa, don't genuinely want to create change, or don't actually present us with tangible ways of doing so. So it's very disingenuous. So you can actually immediately tell when someone's in it for the wrong reasons. And another thing to consider, which we experienced quite a lot, people will always come in and say, oh my gosh, I want to be a part of this. I want to be a part of this. I want to be a part of this. Then assess what they actually do. Because some people are all talk and no action. So they're like, yeah, totally want to be a part of this. But in the back of their mind, they're thinking about their CV, they're bored because of the pandemic. And then you actually see that happening. And it can be quite disappointing because, and you're going to go through that process again and again. But the main thing we learned is there's a point where you have to say, well, actually, this team member isn't contributing anymore. And we just can't work with them anymore. And that's a very hard thing to do, but it's also a very important thing to do. Yeah.
So much for the answer. And so if someone have any questions, just don't hesitate to write this. I don't see any other questions in chat because actually I have a lot, but I want to to give opportunity for everyone to ask.
Oh, I just noticed that. Yes, I just noticed the engagement I previously didn't. Hi, Ruth, Carol, and Babek, and Gemma as well. Oh, I just noticed that they commented there. And yeah, there is a question by Gemma. Do you want to ask it, Natalia?
Yes, Gemma building AI platform for research in neglected diseases with a focus on African users. And she's really interesting to have a chat with you, and maybe would you have to something to say on this point?
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Thanks, Gemma. I really appreciate that. And it sounds like
Gemma
you're
was
doing
actually presenting together with her co-founder on the last previous NanoCon event. We can connect you two on the Slack channel. You both are there, and then you can take it from there.
Share LinkedIn credentials.
That would be great. I'm sorry I missed that talk. How exciting. And I'd be so happy to connect. And yeah, thanks for assisting us to connect on Slack. I really appreciate it. And thanks so much for joining today, Gemma. And I look forward to hearing more about your work.
Oh, this is great, because we are always happy to that members of our community can interact with each other. So this is the mission of OrigamiLab, to connect people, to build something great for the industry. So at least this mission is very, very good.
Event goal achieved, huh? That's great.
Yes.
Yay! And it's beautiful what you do to just connect other people together. Yeah, that collaborative spirit as well as open source spirit is just amazing. So yeah, thanks so
I would
much.
have a question related to that, Natasha. I have one I would like to ask first, and then another one related to maybe less the open source topic, but something that you touched on in your presentation. You have been through the entire cycle, right? And the cool part also, what I really enjoyed listening to, and had a few takeaways for myself, I hope for everyone else as well, from more of a commercial startup experience, right? How you build the app, but also you have shared quite a few insights on how to, you know, specifics from a non-profit or volunteering specific setup, right? Where people are not paid to do things and it's really passion driven. That was very interesting to hear. For both domains, what would be your advice for someone who is thinking to start something, not necessarily a company, but just, you know, has an idea on their mind, or maybe a person that wants to make an impact with certain projects? Is there something that you could give us an initial advice that you had to learn the hard way, and you would spare people, you know, going through that again in the non-profit or volunteering setup, or also in other areas?
Oh, wow, that's such a great question. And I really appreciate that you found some value in what I discussed in terms of the different domains, because it can be very tricky to work in both domains. And I would say when you're having conversations with people, which is very important because they have different backgrounds, different experiences, take what you find useful out of that conversation. That is my main tip when dealing with any sort of idea that you want to develop, don't know how, but want to talk to people. For instance, for Visibility STEM Africa, we talked to some amazing people who are more in the commercialization space. And when we had conversations with them, they were like, I think you should think of creating a company instead. Because it would be easier to get investors. But then we had to go back and have a chat, and we had many chats being like, well, we're very cause driven, and that's what we're about. We don't want to create a company. We want it to be, you know, a social enterprise or entity, a non-profit organization. So it was really valuable. And then also you can learn from others who aren't necessarily in that space. So for instance, we spoke to a lot of people in the commercialization space. And one of the things that we actually learned was run a nonprofit as a for-profit. So what that means is consider sustainability. So cool, you want to do this amazing thing that's cause driven. Prevent it from just lasting 1 year is by thinking about sustainability and considering how you can provide services as well. So even if you're a nonprofit, you can still provide services to make sure that you're sustainable in the future. So you can see how conversations with people who don't directly have experiences in launching nonprofits or even donating or investing in nonprofits led us to consider those types of things. And another thing as well, if you are creating something that's very cause-driven, community-based, spending time growing that community is super valuable before you decide to do anything else. That's another thing we noticed, especially when developing Visibility STEM Africa. And also, another thing I would say is be open to collaboration. A lot of people have this idea and they think it's the best idea in the world. They look at competitors as if, you know, they're enemies. And that's just not our ethos. Our ethos is cool. There are other people in this space doing absolutely amazing things. Let's work together. And just like Origami lab works to connect others with one another who have shared interests. We do the same thing with Visibility STEM Africa. So all the time, we're like, oh my gosh, this person does this, we should connect them together, or we should collaborate on events together. I think that collaborative spirit is really important, especially when you're starting out. And just, yeah, if you have an idea and you notice someone else is already doing it, why not connect with them? Rather than starting something on your own, why not connect with a person that's already been doing it for years? So yeah, that's just another thing that we noticed, especially when we were at the initial stages of ideation. And it's also something we noticed people really admired about us, our collaborative spirit and how open we were to just collaboration and having chats. And yeah, that definitely made the difference.
And we have also space for our last question. Also question from Gemma. What is the major barrier you have encountered from adoption of the tools you have developed?
Oh, that is a brilliant question. That's so good. So in terms of barriers, the main barrier in adoption would be, especially in the health tech field, by healthcare professionals. I mean, the pandemic has done a brilliant thing for everyone in digital health because people know how to scan QR codes. People are more likely to share their health data or talk over phones. That has done a tremendous thing for everyone in the digital health space. But still, there are some healthcare professionals that are quite resistant, especially when you're suggesting change to their field. They're like, well, no, things are working well, just fine. We don't need any innovation. So I think that was the main barrier as well. Another barrier to adoption, I wouldn't say it's to do with adoption so much as with a team, just time, especially with a volunteer team. It can be really tricky, especially because you may think, oh, I don't have enough time. Let me get more team members on board. But actually getting more team members on board means spending more time managing and working with the team members. It doesn't mean it will increase your workload. It will likely increase your workload. And that's a mistake we made initially because we were like, oh, okay, we build this volunteer team and keep bringing in people, but then we realized that actually does take time and even more time. So I think that's our barrier when it comes to the volunteer nonprofit work, because there's so much we want to do. For one, don't have the time, and also resources can be tricky. So yeah, but definitely in health tech space, when it comes to adoption, that's still an issue, as well as, of course, privacy concerns, issues of consent, especially if you're sharing health-related data. Where is this health data being shared? Who is it being shared to? And that's where transparency is very important. But yeah, so those are just some of the barriers we have noticed. But again, the pandemic has done wonders for the field, but still, you do still face some resistance. But yeah, thanks for the great question.
Thank you so much for all the answers. Thank you so much for everyone to join us today. I sharing our social media pages where you can find all the updates. Also, we will stay in touch soon with the record of the conference, so you will be able to check some important moments which you maybe would like to note and to check better. Also, if you would like to connect with us, or you would like to connect with Natasha, just let us know, just tag us in one of the social media, and we would be happy to help. And for everyone, if you would like to be our next guest speaker, just feel free to contact, and we are glad to work with all of you. Thank you so much for this time. Thank you again, Natasha, for this wonderful efforts, for useful presentation. Personally, I enjoyed this a lot and took a lot of insights for myself. And I'm sure that everyone here can say that this hour was spent amazingly useful. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for
Bye,
joining.
everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.